Mike, guess what time it is?
Let's get started.
What
What
time is
time is
it?
it, Josh? What time
Come,
is it?
it is time to record after much ado, much time away. It's time to record a 2-1 for the win podcast with your host, Josh Mazur, that's me, and Mike Sanders, that's him. We're going to talk about something new. We're going to talk about something I haven't got to talk about on a podcast ever before, and that is the Dallas Mavericks in the finals. What a time to be a Mavericks fan, right?
In the NBA freaking finals, man.
Playing basketball in June. Did not think that was going to happen. Well, actually, kind of. I don't know. We kind of said it might happen.
We
So,
had an inkling.
yeah, especially at post trade deadline, it looked more promising this year than in previous years. But man, what an exciting thing to be able to talk about. Um, so, in the nature of all of that excitement happening, we haven't actually got to record a podcast because of storms and hospital visits and all kinds of stuff going on. We haven't got to record since the first round of the playoffs, so we're going to go over what our favorite moments were in those first three rounds. Maybe what we're excited about coming up in the finals, and let's talk a little bit about what role players we think are going to have the biggest impact in this finals run coming up on Thursday. So let's get right into it. Mike, what was your favorite moment of the first round? Seems like it happened 6 months ago at this point. So
Dude, it is insane. Looking back at game one was April 21st, which feels like 5 years ago at this point. It doesn't seem like it's in the same calendar year. Uh from round one against the Clippers, my favorite moment, just that gave me I think the best feeling was in game two when Luca had those two different dagger three pointers in the fourth quarter in Staples Center or crypto.com arena, whatever the Clippers' visiting stadium is that they rent out there in LA. Uh, he hit the first one with like 6, 7 minutes left, in which it's not really a dagger with 6, 7 minutes, but it was, I think, over James Harden, and it gave Dallas the lead, and he's talking smack to the crowd. And then he hit the last one with, I think, around 1 minute left that put them up for good. And he let the crowd know it too. And it was after they got blown out in game one. And game two was like a rock fight, a nail fight. Just felt like both teams were in the absolute mud, and they pulled out the win. And it felt great because it losing game one when they didn't have Kawhi Leonard felt horrible. And then
Mhm.
for them to win game two with Kawhi Leonard back, albeit a limited version of Kawhi, felt really good. And that was just my most vindicating favorite moment of that series.
That did to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Did that feel like the hardest fought series so far? Is it the first round?
It
Because
on
it
Yeah.
felt like that was the toughest matchup for the Mavs, even without Kawhi. Um, it
I
felt
think
like
they
that was the closest they were to letting a series slip away. That was the most nervous I was during a series was that first run. So
Yeah, it was the most nervous I was too. Just I didn't want to lose to the Clippers for a third time.
yeah,
Was basically everything. And once they got past that series, I felt really good about where they were going. But and I also felt like they played their worst basketball of the playoffs in those 6 games, where I don't think, I mean, Luca was, he had a couple of games on a couple of moments, but even though his stats were better in the first round compared to the second round against OKC, I still think he played better in the second round
he
compared to the
looked
first
worse
round.
in that first
Yeah.
round. He looked like he wasn't totally um feeling like himself. And they even talked about announcers talked about how he didn't look 100%. I thought that the emergence of PJ on that scale was the funnest, the most fun I had in that series. Um, Watching him kind of like back people up in big moments and
There was a little
uh the
standing
cross
on
arm,
business.
yeah, standing on business was fun. And um there were some pretty hard fouls on Luca with that were followed up by some some floppiness by Luca, which
Yeah.
made it look even worse. But he had somebody, charge up behind him, which is something they've tried to have in years past, but I think the closest they had to that was a few years ago when they went to the Western Conference Finals the last time. So that was fun to see. What was your big moment of the second round?
Big moment of the second round. Um, I'll go with here the which I was at game six for the closeout, which was just an insanely like the most insane sporting event I've ever been to in my life. I sat for half of the third, or I stood for half of the third quarter, the first half, like behind my section of seats because they started going on a run while I wasn't sitting down. So I told my brother, sorry, I have to stand up for these first 6 minutes because it was just that tense of just an entire 48 minutes of a game. But the moment that I knew that Dallas won the series was in game three. I think it was game three where Mark Dagnall ordered like with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter to do hack a lively to
Mm,
basically intentionally foul him. And the funny videos of Chet chasing Lively around the court
yeah,
just to intentionally foul him. And for it to be in game three of a series where you are the one seed and you're tied 1-1 and you pretty much have to resort to hack a shacking a rookie center on the opposing team who is the
it doesn't
underdog,
work.
and it doesn't work at all. It'd be one thing
Yeah,
if it worked and OKC came back and won, it would have been a different tune. But in that moment, after Lively, it, he had like 12 free throws from being hacked. And I think the first four he split. But then after that, he started just sinking two for two, two for two, two for two. As soon as that happened, I knew the series at some point, whether it was five, six, 7 games, was a wraps for Dallas because it's if you pull out that level of desperation that early in the series, it shows that you don't have any answers for the other team.
yeah.
And if it wasn't for a epic game four collapse by Dallas at home in the fourth quarter, it would have probably been over in 5 games instead of
Mm.
6 in round two. So that was a moment for me that I knew that it was fun to witness that moment, but also I knew that the series was over as soon as that happened.
That's funny because that is kind of a moment that will live in my head is him running away from Chet.
Yeah.
And then the fact that he shared it afterwards, like he knows it's a
Yeah.
funny moment in basketball where he's like, just don't foul me. Let's just run the clock out a little bit.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he uh it didn't matter seemingly what they did. Uh their big star in Shy. Shy played a great series. Um and Luca still didn't at that point look 100% Luca. And I know that some people would like to give credit to Dort or somebody on defense for that, but honestly, it's just the dude's been beat up all year, and he just looked like he was playing, for 100 games or whatever.
Yeah.
He looked like it already. So, um, but I think my favorite moment is the um defensive play. The whole team kind of locked down a few times where there were some shot clock violations on
Yeah.
Oklahoma City's part, and I was like, oh, that's some good basketball right there. Where you got these guys that are just known for not playing defense at all because it happened twice while Luca and Kyrie were on the floor together, and to see them force somebody into a shot clock violation was like Oh, it's beautiful. So
I
those were
don't know if
my
there's a better feeling when you watch your team like lock down and have multiple shot clock violations in a short period of time. Like that's a level of defense where it's you can one is a fluke sometimes, but if you watch holding that team in as low of offense as they did for the series, and then just those moments like those, it's just it's so much fun to watch great defense, and it's
it's even more fun to me to watch great defense when the on a national scale people did not think Dallas played defense
yeah,
or
still
or
don't
they like
honestly.
they still don't. But it's I think that after that Western Conference Finals run, because there are people that do not watch until it gets to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah,
And I think that now you see on national level, all of a sudden people are like, oh, hey, you know, Luca had 5 steals in one game.
it's like
And
he's not too bad.
he's not that bad at defense. I think we've been lied to a little. Um, so that's fun. But I loved watching Lively kind of come into his own and uh he's being beside Gafford, as good as it is to have Tyson Chandler coaching them. I think that's amazing. But one of the unsung parts of bringing in a guy like that's got a little bit a few more years on him than Lively, he's got a veteran status, is bringing in Gafford and letting him uh play beside Lively, because now you see a little bit more personality from Lively whenever he's like
Yeah,
he's gonna dunk the ball, and he's a little louder when he screams. He's got a
yeah,
little bit more oomph to him when he's throwing the ball down. And that's fun to see. And I think that comes from having a veteran presence beside him that's willing to be like, it's okay to be a big man and do this, like
yeah,
when we get ours, you gotta let everybody know. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think I saw Lively like get comfortable being good on this
yeah.
Mavs team. Um, Not for the first time, but really just fall into it. It was he's he's a special player. It's gonna be, man, I hope he has a good finals. That's all I like.
Man, it's I know. I hope he doesn't have a, a drawback like a sophomore slump because it does feel like even though he's still in his rookie season, he's like in year two of his development at this point because just
Yeah.
this he's just been a different animal since like halfway through the Clipper series. He's just been amazing. And even though he's still coming off the bench, which is de facto, he's the closer whenever they need a big
Yeah.
man out there to close. Um, him having a great series against KP and Al Horford in Boston would just I don't know. I saw somebody mention on Twitter about the conversations we're gonna have about Lively this summer if he has a very impactful finals is gonna be insane compared to 24 or 12 months earlier whenever Dallas drafted him. And there was talks that he might spend a good portion of the season this year in the G League, where you take like a 12-month difference into talk around him.
Yeah.
That's just
Well, I mean,
insane.
we
But
we thought Omax was gonna have a better year. We said that on the pod.
yeah, we said he would play more minutes than Lively, like
Yeah.
definitively, and uh, we couldn't
So
be more wrong.
I thought that position was gonna be a bigger need in Omax, but man, I could not be happier to be more wrong about a player, because we never thought that Lively was going to be bad. I thought that was a good draft pick. I think both of us did. Um, but I didn't think he was going to be what he is. He's a game changer. He is the exactly what Luca needed. Um,
His development this quick,
it's
like
it's crazy.
I don't think anybody went into the season thinking that they were a perennial title contender this year, but his rapid development turned them from a fringe contending team this year to being in the NBA finals. It opened up their title window a year early, where say he had a normal rookie season next year, if he was doing what he's doing this year, you'd be fine with it, and the Mavericks would most likely be in this spot now where they're contending for a title. But next year, I mean, if they win this year, they have a title defense for next year, and you have a year two Lively, who is for sure the day one starter, and most likely even better than he is right now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. We're not used to having great big men that are young. I mean, we had Tyson Chandler whenever he was like in his prime or towards the end of his prime.
It was in his
Um,
prime, I think.
it, he's like Lively won't be in his prime until like 2028, 2029,
Yeah.
like at the earliest. And that's
And
just,
we're also going to have the conversation about like I think that if he plays well in the finals and the Mavs win a championship, the conversation now I think shifts already to, oh, can he be as good as Tyson Chandler, to who can he be as good as? Because he is going to be on a level above what Tyson Chandler got to,
yeah.
I think, because he's already at that level and he's this young. So now what's the barometer that we're going to measure him up to? And it's gotta change after this season. Um, as much as I love Tyson Chandler, like it's gonna have to change. We're gonna have to change what we level, what we compare him to. What's your favorite Minnesota Timberwolves moment?
Um, my favorite moment, and then when I knew the series was over, was Luca's dagger in game two to the game winning three over Rudy Gobert. And I don't, it's the definitive. I think if anyone who watched that series, all five games, that's the moment that everyone remembers over anything else. Game five was amazing with Luca's 21st quarter points and the blowout and the resemblance to the game seven win over Phoenix 2 years
Yes.
earlier. That was great,
Yeah.
but the series was already decided at that point. And to me, that game winning shot for Dallas coming back, I think they were down 18 points at
Hmm.
one point in the second or third quarter.
I think so.
Um, and for them to come back and to pretty much show that the game one win was not a fluke, and for Luca and Kyrie just to dominate the clutch again, and then Luca to have that first, I think, really, really big Luca like I'm here moment of the postseason.
Yeah, you
Um,
could say that um the Clippers shot to win the game was big as well, but this was big, and then they went on to win the series, which makes it, I think, exponentially bigger than what it would have
yeah,
been if they had gone on to like lose the rest of the series. Okay,
it
whatever,
it's not really talked
like
about as
yeah,
much.
he put Gobert on skates for a second. Like, yeah, it's a different level uh to that shot. I think that is probably his, you better start paying attention kind of playoff moment for
Yeah.
him. It's funny because one of my favorite moments of this postseason for the Timberwolves is not it's not even a Mavericks moment. Um, there's a moment when I think it was a pregame or postgame presser where Ant and Carl Anthony Towns are talking about like how much do we have to lose?
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we can't,
So we've been losing for 20
we've been
years.
losing for 20 years, and then they're like kind of laughing it off that they don't have, there's no more learning that they can do. That's what I
Yeah.
got out of that was like they think that they're done. They think that there's no, and for a team like the Mavericks who have gone to the Western Conference Finals and lost, when they said that, my brain automatically went, "Oh, they're gonna lose."
Yeah.
Because if you just think that you're like, we're done in the learning stage, now we're about to go in there and show everybody, and you don't have any like to that point, they have proven nothing. You did it. You did regular season winning. You got a first round. You've done good. Okay, but don't talk like that. Like stop it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a sign of immaturity to me, uh that I don't wish on any team.
Yeah.
Like I don't wish that for any fan, to see their players do that. I was like, ugh, to be a Timberwolves fan, that would make me cringe out of my skin. But than to have
Yeah.
them say it and then they're gonna go play our the Mavericks was like, okay, this is gonna be satisfying. Um, and then also just watching Cat struggle. I know that's so like petty of me, but
But
like
he's
the stuff in the past that he's said about Dirk, or not, he didn't say it about Dirk, but it is directed at Dirk when he talks about him being the best shooting big man of all time. Like, you know what you're doing. You know
like
who you're
it
throwing stuff at. So for him to just struggle so much with his shooting, um,
on like
really
wide
just
open shots too.
yeah, just like completely wide open, and he's just can't hit the broadside of a barn, and just made me happy. I was like, I woke up the morning after his, I think he went like 0 for 8 or 0 for 9 or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
And I woke up and I was like, I wonder how Dirk feels this morning. Like, because he was at the game too. I was like, I wonder if he woke up and he was just like, oh, all right.
I
Still the
think
big.
I think Dirk was in attendance for game. It was game three. I think Dirk was there too,
Yeah.
and he went 0 for 8, and that was a game
Yeah.
that he need unintentionally. Lively in the
Yes.
back of the head, and then Dallas still won without Lively for the second half, and
Yeah.
large in part to Cat being extremely bad in that game.
Yeah.
And so
It's great.
it was they had I like 90% of the players on the Wolves. I don't like their coach at this point because he's a big whiny baby and he whined during the game and
Uh,
in the press conferences before and after every single game. And even after the series was over, and then like the next day, he said that he doesn't like the way that the Mavericks play offense, basically. And
yeah,
I'm
you
like,
talked about
well,
illegal screens and stuff like that. You're
yeah,
like,
and it's like
whatever.
you employ Rudy Gobert. But watching Rudy Gobert, Chris Finch, and Cat all fail in that series, it was it was coupling that with Dallas just dominating. It was the most satisfying series of all because it was high intensity for three or I guess four of the five games. They won three of the four clutch time games, and then we got to
Hmm.
just relax and watch Luca dominating game five. Um,
It's exactly what I needed to.
it
I
felt,
posted that morning. I was like, I need game 7 versus the Suns vibes for this
yeah,
game. Like, I do not want to stress about this
yeah,
at all. Please just give me a dominant win. And that's exactly what happened.
yeah,
So I was
yeah,
pumped.
yeah. It was great, man. Then it leads us into this NBA Finals that we're in. The only It's crazy. I'm 20. Well, what am I? I think I'm 27.
I
The
think,
last
are
finals
you,
they
you sure?
I think so. Carry the 4 minus the 9. Yeah, 27.
All
Yeah.
right.
Um I was 14 whenever they won in 2011 and I was like 9 or 10 when they lost in 2006, which that was like one of my first like major like Mavericks heartbreaks was
Yeah.
that finals in '06. And then at 14 at 14 I couldn't fully appreciate that finals. I loved it and it was great, but also I was 14. I wasn't, in high school, college, or an adult yet. So for me, this is like it's the Cowboys have given me nothing like this. The
You've had
Rangers,
your whole life with no Cowboys,
yeah,
anything. Like,
I was born literally 6 months after their last Super Bowl, so there's that. And then the Mavericks, they've been better than the Cowboys. The Rangers, they lost 2 World Series in a row, but then they won last year, so that's been great. But the Mavericks are my team. Like that's like my go-to team. So
yeah.
this series is, I don't know. I told my dad after they closed out the OKC series, I said if they win this OKC series, they're going to win the title. Like I felt it. I was like, this is an insane feat for them to do. And even though I said it, it didn't make sense to me that they were actually going to be in the NBA finals. And so it's
Yeah,
just insane that we're here on June 4th. In a couple of nights, we're going to be wrapping up watching game one
I know.
of
It's crazy.
the finals, man. It's
I'll tell you because I was in completely different life. stages. So in 2006, I was in college. In 2011,
You could be my dad.
shut up! I could not be your dad. I would have to be a deviant. Um, so in 2011, when they won, I was like already like had a job, and I got to shoot photos for that team that year. Um, and that was special. But I will tell you this, like now I have a son. My son's named Maverick. Um, I've, in a completely different life stage, the reason for this team, the 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 reason I would enjoy this win is so much different than the reason like 20 something year old Josh enjoyed the first one. Uh, is so much more important. Like, it doesn't even feel like sports anymore. It feels like this is a life moment. Like watching your son, my kid's 4 years old, watching him enjoy watching the Mavericks win and like jumping up and down and going crazy and actually like kind of understanding what's going on. Like he understands when Luca scores. He knows when Kyrie Irving scores, even though he can't pronounce his name. It's really funny. Um, like watching that is amazing. And I hope that for everybody. Like, and then the moment he like kind of put together the math of like, wait, I'm named after this team was like, because at first he was cheering for the Timberwolves at one point. He was like, I like their jerseys. I like what they wear. And I was like, buddy, you're named after the Mavericks. And he was like, oh, it clicked. So all of a sudden, and you change allegiances. He was, um, so it means so much more. It's it would be such a cool thing. And then also to have it like come right after the Rangers too. It
Yeah.
feels like that's just a thing that happens. Like the Rangers go to the World Series and the
And
Mavericks go to the championship. It's like this is just how it happens now. And the Stars were doing so well too. I wish they
yeah.
had gone also, but
Yeah.
what a year for Dallas sports. It's crazy.
And then there's the Cowboys. And then
Well, that's just never going to happen. I don't even want to
yeah.
worry about it. It's so embarrassing.
Oh man, honestly,
Like,
a Mavs championship this year would make me okay with another decade of Cowboys mediocrity. It'll buy me a decade. I'll be okay with it.
yeah.
It's and because I know that a Mavericks championship now isn't like when Dirk was 32 winning it in 2011, where like
No.
which even like at 14 I was like, man, I was like I've grown up watching Dirk. He's exiting his prime at this point. Like, and then immediately the they tore down the championship team and tried to go a different direction. So there wasn't even a title defense chance. Where
No.
now, like Kyrie and Maxey are really the only two rotation guys that are 30 and above. Everyone else is like 27 or younger,
Hmm.
with a lot of those guys being 25 and younger. So theoretically, this core with one or two pieces interchanging could be together for the next 3-4 years, and they could really go on a run. And it not that they're going to win four straight championships, but
Not
they could
four, not
not
five.
five, not six, but they could get but honestly, if this was the first year theoretically of a Mavericks going to four championships in a row like the Heat did in the early 2010s, and we had to lose this one to win two of the following three, I would take it. Like if you told me to sign right now, I would take it.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No, sorry. I don't know if I'm here next time. All honesty, Mike. I don't know
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm here next year. I don't care.
we'll take the two up
Um,
front. We'll take the two up front then.
thank you. Don't take this one away from me. What's wrong with you?
The Mavs
Um,
are losing.
okay, I
It's
don't, can't do that. Sorry. I wish I cared, but I don't. Um, no, I need this one. I need a championship. Um, also, this is like a big deal for, I think, the future of what Luka Doncic is going to experience in the NBA. If he wins a championship this year, all of a sudden that fodder that they used to drown him in the MVP conversation before is now gone. All that stuff is gone. There's no
Completely gone.
excuses anymore. He is a top three player every year. There's no excuses for why he's not getting MVP anymore. There's no excuses. We've now watched him on the second to grandest scale of them all in the Western Conference Finals play defense, play offense, play well, dominate players and teams that were supposed to beat them. You have no excuse anymore. This guy should be winning MVPs. There's no excuses anymore. Um, so I need that for him moving forward. It's also crazy to think that this early in his career, because like you said, I've only watched when a player has like already lived his whole legacy for the most part, then wins a championship at the tail end of his prime is what Dirk
Yeah.
did. So seeing it when he's just now navigating into his prime, which is crazy to think about, but this
Yeah.
is just now to the prime, I think, of what we're going to see from Luca. He's not going to have a career as long as Dirk.
No.
So his prime is probably going to be shorter. Um, but yeah, we might have like 4 years of prime Luca started out with a championship and then end Kyrie Irving's prime with championships. Do it.
Plural.
Like,
But
yeah, I mean, I would just, I I really do hope because if they win one right now, just like what you said, you do have most of the people on contracts, most of the players that are important are on deals. Moving forward, there's no reason why. It's not like the Dirk championship where he was already tail end of his prime, and a lot of the players that were big contributors to that team were on 1 year deals or they were on their way out anyway.
yeah,
You don't have that in this team. This team was built a little smarter than
a
that
little bit.
2011 uh, championship squad. Sorry, Donnie, uh, but it
Not
was it
sorry.
was a little. Sorry, mm, apologizing to Donnie makes me cough. Um, this team was built a little bit better, and it was built for a long term. Like they really bought into Luca quicker than they bought into Dirk, I think. And
He was also much better, much quicker than Dirk too.
yeah, he
And
was, he was,
and
yeah,
the
for
and
sure.
the Steve Nash departure happened right around the time I think that Brunson left
Same
Lucas. I mean,
time,
yeah, like
yeah,
after the fourth season, I think maybe it was Dirk's fifth, but they had at least 3 4 years together
yeah,
where they had a chance, and it but Nash, whenever he came to the Mavs first with Dirk, was much like better than when Brunson started with Luca. But the way that Nico Harrison has recharged Luca's timeline to where they were very bad at team building underneath Donnie Nelson the first 3 or 4 years, and it's been a slow rebuild the last 2 years with Nico, to where I think retroactively next year he's going to get executive of the year because he did such an amazing job the previous year. Even if he does one or two fringe moves going into next year, he's going to win executive of the year because of what he's done. And he signed a new contract extension this
yeah.
week as well. So
I think
he's
he should have
locked in
got
for
it
the
this year.
future.
I think if they did that award once the playoffs started, which I'm not for, I'm not a proponent of doing any of those season awards sooner, but um, post trade deadline is a masterpiece. Like he
Yeah.
to and also to recognize the mistakes that you've made and rectify them that quickly in the Grant Williams thing, say, "Oh, I thought this was going to work. It's not going to work. Let's move on." Instead of trying to hold on to it for years, which is a problem that the Mavs did in the past, where they're like, "But we did this big move and we really liked it. We're going to keep him for years and see if it eventually works out." They made a move, didn't work. It's clear it's not going to work. Let's just move on. It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing
Yeah.
to have somebody that immediately recognizes, okay, we got to move on. Let's
And
get rid of it.
I feel like GMs and execs that don't do that, they fear job security, so they don't want to be too drastic of changing because say Nico does these deals and Gafford and PG just don't work out. And they're an 8 seed this year after the trade deadline, and they finished an 8 seed and they're a first round exit this year. Nico's like job is going to be on the line, if not this offseason or over the next year, where he operated like he needed to take a gamble and he needed to do something. Whereas being complacent, like a lot of teams are, they're fine with mediocrity or if they're fine with being good enough and they want to slow roll it. Whenever you're not guaranteed like year over year success in the NBA. This year will be the sixth straight year of not having a repeat champion. So we're at a time in
Yep.
the league where there's so much parity compared to whenever like the LeBron led Eastern Conference teams or the Warriors were dominating for like an 8 year stretch.
Yeah.
Really, the Mavericks in 2011, they were the last time where it wasn't like the Heat, aka LeBron, or the Warriors for like 9 straight years in the
Yeah.
finals. And so it's a different era, and that's why it is so special that in the end, I do want Dallas to win this year. I don't want them to lose this year to win next year.
Thanks.
But but
Thanks for
you're not
clarifying that, Mike.
but you're not guaranteed to even be back in the playoffs next year. Like you don't know if like Luka's going to have a season-ending injury next year, or if Kyrie's body is going to give up on him as he's kind of
Yeah.
exiting his prime. Like you're not like look at the Grizzlies. You thought that they were going to be championship contenders after Jaw's second and third year, and now they've had back-to-back seasons where his off-court issues and injuries have derailed like the entire franchise. Like you just don't know. And
Yeah.
I think as a fan, I don't want to take it for granted and be like, I'm just happy to be here no matter what. Like, and I'm going to be happy even if they lose. No, I'm going to be pissed if they lose. Like, it'll be a
Yeah.
great season to look back on, but like, let's go win this thing, which I think they will. Um, which transfers us into a different conversation where I think is it time for predictions? You
Yeah.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
We can do
time?
predictions. We can do it.
I'll let you go first.
You want a countdown of games? We want to do that? Okay.
Do it.
Um, mm, I'm not changing my stance. So I said this when they first came out and it was finalized that it was Mavs and Celtics. We didn't know if KP was going to play yet, but I kind of had a feeling that he was because he kind of does this with injuries. Um, Mavs in six is where I'm at. Um, if I go Mavs in seven, then usually if I do anything in seven, it means I'm not really confident in who I'm picking.
Yeah.
I think that the I think Boston is more talented than uh two of the three teams that we've played. I think that they've been on the East Coast, so their way to get here is a little easier, and that's why they have more wins. But I think two of the three teams that that the Mavericks have faced in the postseason so far, are not as good as Boston. So 6 games is probably where we're gonna end up. I'd say win game one because now it's okay for us to win game one.
We're at a 1 game winning streak of game one, so time to make it two.
Win game one, lose game two, win three and four,
Oh,
then lose two. No. Yeah, no, two, one.
no,
Sorry. Then lose. Sorry, lose five, win six.
I'll
That's where
take
I'm
it.
at.
I'll take it.
That's where
And
I'm at.
I'm gonna be at game six.
Oh,
So
well, look at you.
that's when you said seven at first, they were thinking about it. That hurt me, which means that they were probably gonna lose game six.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also saying Mavs in six, and I have a similar setup for the games. I have Mavs will win game one, also lose game two, win game three, but I have them losing game four. I think we get a 2-2 series. I just something about I think the losing game four curse is greater than the winning or losing game one curse.
Okay.
Because they're 0-3 in game fours in this year's playoffs. And they're all four at home. And it's very sad. But then I think they win game five in Boston. I think it demoralizes the Boston fan base. And then I think they close it out at home in game six. And it's selfishly, I want to be there for the closeout, but also I think that like it would be right for them to have their second championship be closed out at home compared to in 2011 when their very first one was closed out in Miami in game
Yeah.
six, which back then it was still in the format where first 2 games were at home for the Heat, the next 3 were in Dallas, and then 6-7 back at the Heat, which that's a horrible format. I'm
Yeah.
glad that they've switched to the 2-2-1-1-1. So it'd be nice for them to be able to celebrate a title at home immediately. So although it would be fun to see sad Boston fans watching the Mavericks celebrate and at
Kyrie
TD
Irving
Garden,
standing unlucky with his championship
all
trophy.
that's almost worth them winning in 5 or 7.
Yeah,
Um, I
that would
don't,
be pretty sweet.
Josh, I don't know if my anxiety could handle a game 7 NBA finals for the Mavericks. The 3 days like leading up to that or 2 days leading up to that game, I would be I would probably have to call off of work and just lay in bed and sleep all day because I
What a
could not
mess.
handle that level of anxiety. So
That's
that's
funny.
why it's going to be Mavs in six because I'm thinking of my mental health.
Yeah. Well, I'm just Mavs in six because I think the talent is there.
Because you're confident, yeah.
I
Mavs in
just think
six.
I just I think they're the better team
I think they
at
are
this
too.
point. I think
And
if this team played all year, this would have been a 1 seed or 2 seed in the West.
I think they're a 60 plus win team
Yeah.
as currently constructed with health. Um, I mean, I think they were on a 16-2 stretch in March and April before the final 2 games where they sat players, which I mean that's much higher than a 60 win pace. But I think they're an overall better team and clicking more than the Celtics. They've been challenged more than the Celtics so far in the playoffs, and they by far have the best player in the series. Where more times than not, when there's that level of a difference in the number ones and the final teams, usually that team wins the finals. Um, I can't remember. I can't remember the last time that a player that was the number one was that lesser of than the other team's number one, and they won. Maybe like the '04 Pistons, where Chauncey Billups went up against Kobe Bryant, like or Shaq,
Yeah,
whoever you would say would be the
maybe.
number one. I just there hasn't. I don't know. No disrespect to Jason Tatum, he's a top 10 player in the NBA, but Luke is a top two, top three at worst, and I think is the best player in the league. So most of the time that your team wins. And I think they could potentially have the second best player in the series as well, because I think Kyrie could outperform Tatum and Brown in this series. So
Yeah, I mean it depends on what day. I think I think Kyrie has a lot to prove in a Boston series. Like this is either going to be so sweet for him or so bitter. One way or the other. Um, I hope it's sweet. All right, man. I enjoyed sitting here and talking finals with you. We will
a lot
try
of
to catch up
fun.
with each other soon, maybe mid-series, and see what's going on. See if our predictions are there. Your prediction was Jason Tatum sucks, right? Is that I'm just writing him down real quick before
I
we move
think
on.
my official prediction was that
Jason Tatum is not a top 25 player. Okay, I wrote it
I
down.
think Jason Tatum is going to average 7 points per game this series. Is what I said in the first half. Let's
Oh, okay, all right.
still
All
horrible,
right.
but
Yeah. All right, man. We'll see you later.
all right,
Thanks for watching,
later.
everybody. Click subscribe. Bye.